Let's get to today's topic. Today, I'm going to be talking about Zoom tips. Now, this is not going to be an instruction on how to use Zoom. It's not going to be a full tutorial or anything like that. Zoom has been expanding a lot lately and adding new features, I dare say on a monthly basis, if not weekly. So it would take all day to go through everything, especially when you go through their Zoom preferences when you log into zoom.com. So this is not going to be anything like that. I'm going to turn my spotlight off, and I would like to know how many people host meetings as in addition to, or just put in the chat, how many people host meetings in addition to attend meetings? So do a lot of you host them, or are you just mostly attending? So it looks okay. Hosting is popular. Okay, the next question is it with a free account or with a paid account? Just out of curiosity. This will kind of help me. All right. Wow, a lot of paid. Okay. Zoom is popular. And rightly so. It's good, and they are on it. So I'm going to spotlight everything again. All right. So what I'm going to do, first thing I need to do is move out of the desert or out of the palm trees here, and I'm going to move into my office here. So give me a minute here. A little green screen there, and there we are. We are in my office. So the way that I'm going to do this is I have an iPad and I have my iPhone, and I'm going to primarily talk about, the iPad and the Mac, and I'm going to primarily talk about the Mac version of Zoom, not necessarily the iPhone version, because I think a lot of people are using, the Mac version or the iPad version. One more question for everyone. How many of you are on an iPad when you do these Zoom meetings like today? So I'm curious how many people use an iPad. Not as many features on the iPad, but it is far simpler to use. So, nope. Okay, never. Wow. All right. Sometimes. Okay, cool. That, like I say, that will help me out. All right. So the first thing that we're going to look at here is we're going to take a journey through these settings in Zoom on the Mac. And this is something that I like to do with any type of software, and especially with Zoom, because they are really moving on changing features. I mean, we've heard Eckert talk about Zoom did this, Zoom, and it's usually, once a month or once every couple of months. So two things you want to do is you want to make sure that you're using the latest version of Zoom. And what I would recommend is doing this after a meeting. Don't do this before a meeting. Just, not in case something goes wrong, obviously. And then also, like I say, take a look at the settings. So let's go over to my Mac here, and we're not going to start a Zoom meeting here. We're just going to take a look at the settings, because you're going to find there's a lot of little gems in here. And again, I'm not going to go through everything, but what you are going to see is a lot of little gems. And the first one, when I go up to my Finder here, go into Zoom, and I go to Zoom, the first thing that you'll want to do is test your camera and microphone. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is just open up your Zoom preferences or settings. I am using macOS Ventura, although it really doesn't matter which macOS you're using for the most part, but I am going to be talking about the settings here, when in older versions it is called preferences. So if you hear if you're looking for settings, know that you're actually going to be looking at your preferences. All right. So basically, like I said, the first thing you want to do is you want to test your microphone and your camera. And the way that you do that is you just go over here to video. This is going to test your camera. Really simple, but it's just a good habit to get into. So now we can see my camera here. I can see how I'm going to look on it before I join the meeting. And if I have multiple cameras, I can even select a different camera. I don't have, I guess I do have my iPhone 12 connected in here. So I could switch to my iPhone 12. It's plugged in. So if you wanted to switch cameras before you join the meeting, this is where you would go. There are a few other settings in here. You can mirror your video. So if you have writing on your shirt, it'll reverse it. Or right now I'm holding up my right hand, but to me on the camera, it looks left hand. So you see a lot of people be like, oh, I meant this over here and I meant that over here. Well, if I mirror it, it'll fix that. So then when I raise my right hand, it'll be mirrored and it'll look like my right hand to me. So depending on how you use Zoom, if you're presenting or anything like that, this can help you out with the mirror. Also, I don't have it selected here, but select HD. And I'll talk about hosting towards the end. There's a little thing that you can do with Zoom. Email them, and they'll give you a better quality for free. So I'll show you where that is. The next thing you might want to do is touch up the appearance. I generally don't use this one. I don't use it. And then you also have adjust for low light. So if you're in a low light area, what you can do is adjust for low light, give a little better look there. And again, any of these changes are going to be shown immediately before you join the meeting. We also can always display the participant in their video, the name. Stop the video and join in a meeting. Now, this is a good one. If you just want, when you join a meeting, make sure that your video is off. Just select this, and every time you join a meeting, your video is going to be off. And then what you do is you turn it on. And I'll show you how that all works later on when we look at the controls. If you want to hide non-video participants, so if you're in a large group and, you know, we're looking at everybody here and, you know, there's no reason for us to look at people that have their camera off. All we're looking at is a name at that point, or an avatar or something. So what you're able to do is hide that. We can have up to 50 people or 49 people show in our gallery. Well, if we have 75 people and 25 of them don't have their camera on, there's no reason for us to have them show. And I just want to see the people that have their camera on. This is where you can do that, hide the non-video participants. You can also hide your self view. No reason for me to see myself unless you just want to make sure that you're within the camera angle or, you know, something along that line. But, you know, if once you get that all set, you can hide your self view. And I'll show you a couple shortcuts for this when you're actually in a meeting as well. And then down towards the bottom, 25 participants. This is what it's set to by default. But if you're in a larger meeting, what you can do is set it to 49 participants. So then your thumbnails will obviously be smaller when you're looking at your gallery view, but it will, you know, show more people on there. So I usually have that on. This is, I'm not signed in here, so this is why this is all off. If I was signed in, it would remember all this and you'd actually be able to see that it would be set to 49 people. Let's take a look at our audio here. With audio, I can test the speaker, and all this does is just play a tone. So I'll turn it up here. So if you're using AirPods, you want to make sure that you have them set to go to your AirPods when you're in that meeting. This is where you can select what speaker and you can test it. Also, you can test your microphone. So you can see as I'm speaking here, the green bar is going VU meter for those old school, and you can set the level. Right now it is set to be automatic, but if you want to, you know, if it's a little bit loud, you can change it up, or I can boost it up there. We do not want it to be red. I'm not speaking loud enough, which is good, but generally I have found really good luck with automatic. And then we also have optimized audio. So what we can do is we can suppress background noise. If you have a sensitive microphone, and these MacBook Pros and iPads, they really actually have really good microphones. What they can do is pick up little hum, little noise. Your furnace is going, or you have a fan going. I have a Drobo on my desk. When that thing, it is off right now, but if that thing is on, you would just see a constant little hum. With that, because it can pick up that fan. So what this will do is this will suppress any of that background noise. If you don't want that, you can just turn this off, but I recommend leaving it on, and leaving it on auto but you can also set how much of that background noise in the back. Now, this is not going to stop a phone call, anything like that. It's just a constant, fan, that kind of thing. And then we can also have it automatically join the audio when you join a meeting. I generally will leave this off too, because I want to set this up as I join each meeting. The other thing that we can do in this setting here is, and I know some of you know this, but you're going to see we have press and hold the space key to temporarily unmute. So if your microphone is muted, which is always a good thing to mute your microphone when you're in a meeting. Every host likes that. But if you have a little more open meetings, generally my meetings on my site, I have them, they're a little bit more open. I don't have, excuse me, I don't have a moderator. It's just me. And I've learned by working at Apple, I can take these questions like bam, bam, kind of thing. So something, and okay, turn that off. All right. All right. I'm just going to use it for my guides. Those little blue bars that kind of tell me what I'm talking about, you won't see. So I don't know what she did. I'll figure it out afterwards. Okay. So basically what we're also able to do is use the space bar or space bar. I don't know why they call it a space key. I guess it's a key. We're used to calling it a space bar. But when you mute your microphone, like I said, as all hosts like, if you need to talk, all you have to do is just hold down the space bar and it will temporarily unmute yourself. So that's what I recommend people doing, like when they do my class. So they just have a question, they can just unmute. And then once they're done with that question, they can go back to, being muted. We've all seen it where the phone rings or, the dog barks, a cat meows, kind of thing. And that can come across there. So you want to make sure that this is turned on, really easy to do. And that's how you can get that squared away. All right, now let's go to my next slide here. All right, the next thing that we're going to look at is background and effects. With background and effects, what we're able to do is add backgrounds. So basically, we've all seen this with, basically what we're able to do. If I click on the plus here, I can go and add an image or a video, and that's where we get the palm trees and things like that that are in the background. Now, what I would recommend, and I'm not going to get into a green screen discussion here, but it's really, really simple. We've also seen it when you use Zoom's background, virtual background. If you're on a lot of meetings, I would recommend getting one of these, and it can be just a green curtain. I have a green curtain sitting up in my closet here. I mean, it's just a piece of fabric that I got from Amazon. It just has to be green. And the reason why I would recommend doing that over top of just using Zoom's little gizmo here, their little virtual background, is because if you have two people, what's going to happen is one of the heads will pop out. Zoom is optimized for a single person. It is not optimized for your hands and all that. So you might see hands disappear. We've all seen it. If someone's using a Zoom virtual background, that's what happens. If you use a green screen, you don't get that. It's really, really simple. You just hang it in the back. This is my old one. It was a curtain rod, and you can actually see it right there. There's a curtain. It's not used anymore. This is a roll-up one now, but it was just a piece of green curtain, and you can use blue as well. Just has to be a solid color. Then when you do that, what you can do is add an image in here, and we'll go to photos, and this one looks good. And now you can see, and as my hands go there, because I'm using the green screen, it doesn't affect it at all. If I turn this off, now you can see my arm is disappearing there. Somehow I got a floating hand. I'm Thing from Addams Family here. So those are the things that you can run into If you have a green screen, you don't have that. Now, the reason why my green screen is cut off right down here is because the angle of my Mac is not at the same angle as the camera. So really, if I just go like that, you can see that it'll fix itself. So I would recommend, if you're on a lot of meetings, get a green screen. Simple to do, and then you're good to go. As we're talking about green screen, I don't have this as a slide necessarily, but let's just talk about another thing is you want to look at the camera. Now, excuse me, I have a teleprompter here. If you were to look at my setup here, I know that mine's extreme. I have a teleprompter here. So the camera's behind that. I can see everyone in there. So when I'm talking, looking at you, I'm actually looking at the camera. So I know that my system's a little extreme, but for the most part, you do want to have your iPad or your Mac at eye level and in front of your face. Typically, when you're at a bar or when you're in a conversation and you're having a conversation with someone, what's the worst thing? You could be sitting like this. Oh yeah, no, that was really great, because they're looking at this. Eye contact, it's key. So rotate, eye contact. Really simple to do. If I was on my MacBook Pro or my MacBook Air, right now you're not seeing eye contact. All I would have to do is just lift this up there. I mean, I'm not, directly looking at the camera because I'm looking at my screen to do stuff, but it does look much more pleasing as opposed to something like this, or something like this, or something like this, kind of thing. So, it's a general tip. When you do tips, you'll see that a lot. Good lighting, another thing that you want to do. Do not have the lighting behind you. You don't want to have a window behind you. When you have a window behind you, it can make your face really dark and all that. You want to have light in front of you. Now, I'm extreme. Again, I got the fancy equipment, but you can kind of get an idea. You're going to see, there's the light. It's in front of me, not in back of me. And that's what you really want. You want light in front of you. So if you're in an office and you don't have this fancy light, and although it's relatively inexpensive, so if you're on Zoom meetings quite a bit, it's not a bad investment. You'll have your audience will have a much better experience. But on top of that, if you just have a window with natural lighting, have the window in front of you. So then the natural light comes, so you're, basically looking outside. You don't want the window behind you. And then that will make it look much better. All right. So that's, a little bit on the looks. Simple tricks, green curtain, have the light in front of you. It could be a window in front of you, and, turn mute on, use a space bar, and you're going to be good to go. Look at the camera when you can. All right. Another thing that you can do with Zoom is change the text size of your chat. So we all know that the Mac has accessibility settings, and the iPad and the iPhone. And, as we get older, we like to have the text a little bit larger. If we don't have these guys, well, on the in Zoom, we can go and make the text size larger and smaller. This is for chats. It's also for the captions. So you can go and do that in the settings there. Let's take a look at this on an iPad. There's not as many settings on an iPad. And I know you can't see my iPad. The cat did something. Wow. I wonder what she did. Did I turn that off? iPad and me. All right. I'll come back to that. I'll figure that out. Let's go and start a meeting here. So I'm going to actually start it on my iPad. You're not going to see it here. And what I'm going to do is simulate as a guest which was most of us, what we all are here. The only hosts here are Sheeta, Eckert, and myself. So this will be how it works for everyone else. And we're just going to take a look at the tools and the different things that we have available to us. So I'm going to join a meeting here. I'm going to type in my meeting ID here. And this is a random meeting ID. So I use this once. This is not my personal meeting ID. And I go join. And the passcode 0585. Join. All right. So when you join a meeting, we can see that we're going to stop the video here. We can see that the camera goes on there. So you can test your camera there. And I can join with computer audio. I am not going to join because otherwise I could get some feedback. So we're just going to leave that off. All right. Continue. So this is basically what everyone sees here. Let's take a look at some of the tools here that we have available to us. Sorry about looking at me on the side there. Maybe I should go like this. Or is that the iPad? That's the iPad. All right. All right. So we'll go like that. All right. Okay. So in order to, we're just going to take a look at these and the tools that are available to us. Over here on the left, you're going to see meeting information. This is where we can see all of the meeting ID. And if I wanted to invite somebody to this, I could copy this link. You can see the passcode is there and I can send it to someone. So, we've been in a meeting before and it's like, let's say I wanted to have my wife go to a meeting. What is that meeting ID? Where can I find that? Well, basically all you have to do is just go over to this little security meeting information icon and you're going to be able to get that information. Just meeting ID, the link, it's all good. And over on the right, we have our view. The view is where we can go and change our speaker and gallery. Most of us know this, but for them, for those that don't, we can easily switch between our speaker and view or gallery. This is where I can also hide my self view. Remember how we can hide that by default? Well, what I can also do is turn this off. And now it's only, you're going to see my self view is up here. I have the camera off. So when I go and hide that, now I'm just looking at the guest. And if I hide the, well, I'm not going to turn it on the iPad. So show the self view. Also, this is where we can hide non-video participants. So I'm going to turn the video off on my iPad. There, I just turned the video off on my iPad. This is a non-video participant. And self view. It's not doing it, but this is where probably because I'm host, you can't hide the host. But basically, if you want to hide everyone that has the camera turned off, this is where you can do it. And then, of course, you can go full screen. Let's go over to the lower left-hand corner here. This is where I can, remember I turned the audio off. This is where I can join with my audio. And if you have multiple microphones, a lot of us will have multiple microphones or cameras. As you saw, I had a couple of cameras. What I'm able to do is click on this little caret here. This is what they call a caret. And I can switch to different microphones. Now, this particular computer doesn't have one, but if you had AirPods, this is where you'd see that microphone. Plug in a microphone. This is where you'd see it. So you can switch. And you can do this in meeting. So if you want to switch to a different microphone while you're in the middle of a meeting, you can do that. We have our start and stop video. Click on it, start and stops the video. And this is where I can go and select my camera, as well as choose a virtual background. So we have a shortcut to changing our background. I can blur my background, different things like that. So let's go and turn off show self view and turn on my camera. There it is. And we will blur my background. You can see it's blurry there, just in my little thumbnail here. If you were to see my iPad, which my cat ruined for me, you'd be able to see that as well. So you can go and change, your different video filters and things like that there as well. If we keep going over to the right, we have our participants. Now, when I click on this, what it does is it opens it up in the same meeting window. Now, I do not have dual monitor. I'll talk about that shortly. This is just a standard setup. I actually kind of like this because otherwise I get in too many windows. Right now I have, this is why I can't get that iPad up and running, because I have too many windows open on my big Mac. Sometimes it's just nice having everything in a single window. But if you wanted to pop this out, it's really easy to do. Just go to the caret again. Remember, these little arrows are called carets, and you're going to see pop out. When I select this, it pops it out as a separate window. And now what I'm able to do is put this anywhere I want. You want to put it back into the meeting window, you can do that too. Merge with meeting window. And now it's back in the window. When we are looking at this, you're going to see we have more. And what I'm able to do is rename. This is where you can go and easily rename yourself. Just go and find yourself in the participants here, and then click on rename. And then you can type in a new name. Now you can only do this. I can't go and rename the other person because they're the host. Now, the host can do this. Sheeta, Eckert, and I could do this for other participants. You've seen Sheeta do this. What she is able to do is if someone can't figure out how to rename themselves, she just gets their name and then she goes over here and she can rename them. But if you want to do it yourself, all you have to do is just find yourself here and rename. Also, we have our chat. Now, this will also open up in that side window. So now you're going to see I have my chat here. So I have my participants here and my chat. I don't want to see the participants. I can hide the participants. And now this whole sidebar is the chat. I want to see my participants. I can do that. I want to pop the pop the chat out. I can do that as well. Little caret here, pop out. And there it is. And pop that out. I want to merge it back in with the other window. I go down to the More button here, and you see Merge with Meeting Window. And now it's merged back over here. And I can resize this. So if my chat is a little more active, I can reduce my participants window. And I can also, of course, just turn off the participants window. Let's see here. What do I have next on my list here?
Dan, do you want to answer a few questions?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. First of all, let's go to Rob Huff. Then we're going to go to James.
While I'm answering these questions, I'm going to see if I can figure out what's going on with my iPad. So go for it.
All right. So Rob, you're up. Jane, you're next. Melissa, you're after Jane. Rob, can you unmute yourself and ask your questions?
Sure. Thank you. The question I have is sometimes I try to record not within Zoom as a host, but record using the record option on an iPad, and there's no sound. And the same thing's true with other video programs. And I couldn't figure it out, even right clicking or anything.
So on the iPad, you can't read, it doesn't, it should record everything. I don't have an answer for that. There's not really any
video, but no sound.
No sound. There aren't any settings for this, for the record. It's either record or you don't record. For the most part, there's not a lot of settings in there. What I would do, and maybe this is, I'll come back to this. We're going to take a look at the Zoom settings through zoom.com. There are a ton of settings in there. And maybe there's something in there. So we can take a look at that when I talk about that.
Can I ask a question? Because I know that when you are doing a presentation on your computer, there are two buttons down on the lower left-hand corner about audio and optimizing, and that you have to click those in order, not those, when you're sharing. And that you have to click in order for the, and that you have to click in order for the audio to, from your computer to sound and record. So do you have, and I don't do this on an iPad, so do you have some of those same options on the iPad? That might
you're
be
talking
why
about-
you don't. That might be why you don't hear the sound on
Well,
a
I know they
recording.
have optimized audio if you're sharing your screen, but this is
Right.
not the record function on Zoom. That works. You can either do it to the cloud or your computer. It's really just generalized using that record that comes with the iPad. That's why it's a little bit off the topic, but sort of on the topic.
All right. So I have my iPad. I pulled it up and join audio. Is that what you're talking about, Sheeta?
On the, like I said, I don't use it on the iPad, so I don't see the same things, but there are two buttons when you're on a computer that you have to click in order for the audio to come through, period. Otherwise, you just get a recording. So I don't see the same.
No, and
I don't see the exact same option.
Yeah, let's the settings here for the iPad are very limited. And you're going to see I can record to the cloud. Basically, it's on or off. Meeting settings here. You know, like there's not a whole lot here on the iPad. In fact, there's nothing here to do with audio. So I don't know.
Okay.
It's a good question.
All right.
Don't
Thank you
have
for
an
your
answer.
question. Jane Wood, you're up.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
I hope you're not too hard on that kitty when this meeting is
No,
over.
no.
It sounds like you have a good relationship. So my question is simply the settings that you were going through in the beginning. Do those settings just hold for the meeting that you're in? Like if you do the settings in a meeting?
They are they will hold for, if I turn on use dual monitors,
Yes.
it will remember that. It is not a per meeting setting. It is a default setting.
Very good to know.
There's a lot of settings in there, so it's always fun to go through those. And like I said at the beginning, this is traditionally what I do when I look at any app. I go through the settings. I've done this for years because that's where you find all the little gems, especially with Zoom. So
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you very much.
Melissa, you're next, and David Winograd, you're after Melissa.
Thank you. When I talk to the meetings I host, sometimes I don't know, I get excited and I might talk loud. Is that loudness coming through to my audience at the other end? Or is
it
Zoom
depends
able to
on,
kind of modulate audio?
make sure that go to your audio settings and make sure that this is turned on. Then it will modulate it. So the louder I talk, it'll suppress it. You want to make sure that that is on. So yes, if you get excited, turn that on. And then if you get quiet, it'll turn the volume up a little bit and it'll make sure everything's all good. So, yep.
Great, thanks. I have a second question. Your screen is fuzzy to me. I use a Comcast cable. I have a high res monitor, but when I'm looking at your laptop or the laptop is what I see now. It's in the MacBook Air, kind of frame.
Right.
And then your screen share. It looks fuzzy to me. So I'm just wondering why.
That could be me.
Stop.
Is it fuzzy to everyone else?
Stop for a second. Dan, your screen just went yellow. Everything's yellow. Your screen is no longer showing. There you are. We see it now.
Okay. Fuzzy now?
Yes.
Still fuzzy.
Yeah,
Very,
I don't.
to me.
Well, that's where we can look at the statistics, and I'll show you where you can view that. That might be something on my end. I am wired. I would always recommend make sure that if you can, make a wired connection. But outside of that, if you use Spotlight, so if I go back over to my Mac here, and let's see, I'm looking at my Mac. What you can do is you can spotlight someone. Now, I don't have enough people in this, but you can spotlight. And that's traditionally what I do with these meetings. Well, when you spotlight someone, it is not a screen share, and the resolution can be lower. Now, what you can do is you can ask Zoom to, if you have a paid account, you can ask Zoom to up that bandwidth, and it'll get to HD. Still not going to be as good as screen sharing, which is what I'm doing now. Right now, I'm getting the best resolution. And so if
I
you're
can
getting,
Oh.
barely read the text that's on your screen.
Same here. And
Okay.
so and actually someone wrote something in the chat that I sort of want to echo. Edwin said that Dan's screen is always fuzzy. And I actually want to echo that, because I know it has a lot to do with what you're pushing through. It has a lot to do with bandwidth.
yeah,
But I actually have to agree with him in some regard, that it's almost always fuzzy. And I just think it's everything that's going on.
right.
All right.
Huh.
All right. So we've got a couple more questions that I want you to get through, but thank you for that. David Winograd, please unmute yourself and ask your question. David?
Yeah, my question is, what software are you using for a rolling transcript?
That is built into Zoom. I'm not using anything. If you go to, you see show captions here, basically you turn that on.
I don't mean that necessarily. I thought that you were referring to that you were reading a transcript.
I think he's talking about your teleprompter.
No, I use
Teleprompter.
Keynote. Yeah, I use Keynote, and I just have a slides, and it kind of keeps me in check. So,
Oh, and you just keep pushing it up?
yeah, I mean, that could be another topic, but you'd have to see my setup here. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we got Hank Humphrey. Can you ask your question, please? Hank's question is, why can't my participants find controls you're discussing, Dan, on their iPad or iPhone?
Well, let's go over to my iPad. The iPad and the iPhone generally just doesn't have as many controls. So when we're looking, so now I can go through a journey of the iPad controls. We kind of went through it on the Mac. I didn't get into reactions, but basically, those are all the controls. On the iPad here, this is where I can go and switch to gallery view over in the upper left-hand corner. Over at the top, this is where I can go and view my meeting information. And I can join audio. I have it turned off so we don't hear any feedback. Start the video. Just turn this on and it turns the camera on and off. Share content. I can actually share the screen on my iPad with everyone. I'm not part of this meeting here, but if I was part of our NMUG meeting, I'd be able to share my screen. I can share photos, iCloud. These are the apps that I have installed. We also have my participant list. I can't break this out into a separate window. And I can mute all. This is great for a host. Mute everyone. And when we go under more, I have my security. This is where I can set who can screen share, being that I'm the host. So you're going to see a few more options here. This iPad is the host, I should say. This is also where I can view my chat. We have our meeting settings, and I have my background and effects in here. So, basically everything's all right under here. And then I have my reactions. So it's pretty simple to do, pretty simple to manage. One thing that people I don't know if it's on by default or not, but when you go to meeting settings here, what you can do is you can have the meeting controls always show. You're going to notice that my meeting controls always show here. I believe this is off by default, and I find it annoying. So I'm going to turn it off. And those meeting controls disappear now. So if I want to see them again, what I have to do is click, and then I can go up to more. It does give you a bigger view of whatever you're watching, but I just like, it's kind of like the Mac. I like to always show the menu bar. The menu bar hides when you go into full screen mode. You can turn that off. You can always show the menu bar. I don't like things hiding because then I have to take an extra step to do something. So basically, go into your meeting settings and always show the meeting controls. You also have the same thing on the Mac. If we look at my Mac here, you're going to see that my meeting controls automatically hide if I stop doing anything. They should hide. There they go. They disappear. If I go into my meeting settings or my preferences, I can go and always show those. On the settings, I do want to say that what you may want to do, and I do recommend this, it can be a little overwhelming, but if you go into Zoom, I'm going to sign in to my account here. There are a ton of settings in here, and these settings, when you go to settings here, they've gotten better at organizing this, but there's just a ton of settings. You're going to see I have, when I scroll up here, look at that scroll bar. I mean, it's just small because there's just so many settings in here. But the nice thing is you only have to go through this once, and especially if you host meetings, you'll want to do this. Just go through there. They have a nice description of what the different settings do. These are the meeting settings. Start the meetings with the host video on. Do you want to have that on? Do you want to have the participants video on by default? If you don't want your participants to have their video on and they have to turn it on manually, you can go and turn that off as a host. We have meeting basics in here. Who can chat? You can set it up to where people can only chat with the host or the co-host. They can't chat with each other. So it depends on who your audience is, but there are options in there to limit the chatting even.
Got a question for you, which is it fits in right in with what you're asking or what you're showing. Debbie, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Debbie Clark.
I noticed recently they added these apps to the screen, and every time I've got to go in and close the apps because I don't want to see them because I don't use them. So is there a way to do that in settings, or I have to go to Zoom to do settings?
There's not a way. So what you can do, for those of you who are not familiar with it, what you can do is you can get different apps, and they link or they connect up to Zoom, and there could be background apps and emoji apps and all kinds of different things. There is not a way to turn that off automatically. What I do is I don't have any apps, but I will minimize, basically make sure I have very few apps, but there's not, at least as far as I know. And if someone has a separate answer, please speak up. I don't have any apps, so I can't tell you personally. But
what Zoom did, and I'm sort of piggybacking on what Debbie asked, with one of the updates, Zoom sort of forced these apps on you on the right-hand side of the screen. And I feel the same way as Debbie does. I want these gone, but I don't know how to get rid of them. They're not something that I've added. It's like they're trying to get you to buy these apps and subscribe to them. So I agree with Debbie. I want to find a way to get rid of them. I don't want to see them.
Right. So here's where this is all done through the web portal, which is what when we're talking about the web portal, we're talking about zoom.com or zoom.us. Sorry, it's not .com, it's .us. But basically what you do is go to the sign in as the administrator, and then the navigation panel, click advanced app marketplace. So let's see here. Let's see if we can find it. Advanced. Here we go. App marketplace. And right here is where I can add apps. And this is also where I can remove them. So this is where you would go and remove them.
It's not the app I want to remove because I don't use apps. It's the list of them that sticks on the right side.
Well, if you have a list of apps, those apps are installed. You might not use them.
No, they're not. They're not installed.
May I intervene here? You can go down. If you look at these apps, you go all the way down. There are 3 points, and if you click on them, you can close the dock of the apps.
Sure, but I don't want to do that every time.
Okay.
Okay.
But for each meeting, that's the way you can do it.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Edgar. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So but they're actually, Zoom puts them there to try to entice you to buy them. These aren't apps that I've installed at all. And, obviously Debbie and I are just really discussing it with them.
Right.
But thank you. All right, all yours. Everyone else, hold your questions and we'll get to you shortly. All right, thank you, Dan. All yours.
Yep, no problem. All right. So, like I said, essentially what you want to do is go through these, go through these settings on your in Zoom.us. One thing that is in here, you're going to see that a lot of people will, I have a person on my meetings that I hold on Thursday nights who is constantly changing his avatar or his icon. He's a big Green Bay fan. So during the NFL, he would, put Green Bay stuff on there and it would just change. Or when we're talking about something, what he would do is put some, icon in there that's relevant to it. So how did he do that? You have to do that through Zoom.us. You can't change. So right now you're going to see if I were to stop my video, it'd just be my picture. Can I change that picture? And the way that you change that picture is through your profile here. So if you want to change your picture, and you can do this mid-meeting. So that is what you're going to see if I were to stop my video. So click on this. And now what I'm able to do is change this and upload a new picture. So this is basically what Steve does. He just goes in here and you have to do this through Zoom.us. So, it's kind of funny with Zoom. There's a lot of settings within the app, but oh, wow, are there settings within the within their preferences here. And there's some really good gems in here. And what I mean by that is if we go to let's see here. What is it? Feedback. Okay. So I actually taught this. This is not necessarily with Zoom, but it comes in extremely handy here with Zoom. You're going to see that up at the top here, we have a search. I don't like using the web search because all of a sudden it could take you to a different page. If I know that I'm looking for something that's called feedback, I can go in here, type in feedback. Okay, that's kind of cool, but that's not really, wasn't feedback, it was something else. What I like to do, and I just put this in my meeting, is I like to use the search within Safari, or if you're using Chrome or whatever, and just search the web page. So there's a setting in here, and I'll talk about the setting here shortly. And it's nonverbal feedback. And with this nonverbal feedback, when you go to the avatar, if the host enables this, the host has to enable it. You know how we have our thumbs up, thumbs down. Basically, what it also does is adds a check mark, an X, a coffee cup, can indicate that you stepped away. It's nonverbal feedback, but not a reaction. So you want to enable that as a host. So what I do is I use the Command F to get to my search. And then when I type in here, feedback, I know it's called feedback, you're going to see that it highlights everything that is where it finds it. And I like this a lot better than using a web search, including even on my site. I mean, I'll use this when I'm looking for something. If I know it's on the page, this is how I do it. So I go feedback. You're going to see it found 6 matches. And all I have to do is just hit return to rotate. I'm hitting the return key and you're going to see that it's rotating through all the different. So now I'm like, nope, that's not it. Feedback to Zoom. That's not it. There it is. Nonverbal feedback. So side tip, love search within a web page. So when I turn this on, what it does is it adds 2 reactions here. I'd have to quit out of the meeting and join it back in. You would see another row here of nonverbal feedback. And this is great for hosts. Like if this was enabled on NMUG, I would have been able to say, go to your reactions and, just give me a, how many people are using the iPad. Everyone could put a green check mark there. Or if you're not using, put a red check mark there, and then I get a nice summary. So if you're hosting meetings, it's a nice little tool where people can give nonverbal feedback kind of thing. So, and it just, you turn it on, start a meeting, and they'll be right below all these different emojis. Nice little tip there, nice little trick there. All right. What else do I have? I'm a little bit out of order because I'm not following my keynote because my cat, it was a catastrophe. I thought that was quite funny. I saw that in the chat. So that is awesome. Let's see here. What else do I have? Journey through the settings, web, got that. Change with the profile picture. We did that. Enable nonverbal feedback. Hey, that might be, okay, we got that. View meeting information. Change your speaker to gallery. Hide self view. I think I might have everything. So we can open it up to more questions. Oh, view bandwidth statistics. I mentioned that. So, like with my case, and I need to figure this out. It's not the first time I've heard that. I am using screen sharing, so there's really no reason why the network, should be blurry or anything like that. But I need to look at that. So one way of doing that is when you're in a meeting, what you can do on the Mac, this is a Mac only thing, what you're able to do when you go to your preferences or settings is view statistics. And here's where you can kind of see what is going on. Is your computer being overtaxed? Now I have an M1, and also this is a separate computer that I'm using two different computers here. So this isn't being taxed, but if you have a single computer and you're doing some other stuff, quit out of all the other apps. Also, maybe restart your Mac. iPads are a little bit better, but restart your Mac before you join a meeting. But when you what you're able to do is kind of just see what is going on here. If I were to do screen sharing, I'd be able to see what the latency is and how much bandwidth I'm using. It's a little bit on the nerdy side, but it is a good way of kind of figuring out what is going on, kind of thing. In my case, it's definitely something to do with Zoom, and I'm not blaming it on Zoom by any means. I also stream to YouTube, stream live to YouTube. Every single time it's perfect. YouTube just, has I got something, and I'm gonna have to go through all these settings to figure it out. There's HD video in the zoom.us. I'm gonna have to make sure that is enabled. So there's just all kinds of little things in there. So, all right. Let's open it up to questions. We have about 10 minutes here. I think I went through everything.
All right, Stephen, you're up. Eileen, I'm sorry, you're next. Stephen Ramirez, go ahead.
Something I stumbled across a couple of weeks ago is on the iPad under the settings profile. At the very bottom, I pressed shortcuts. I turned one on. Now, when I started the meeting this morning, about 10 minutes ahead of time, I said, "Hey, lady, start Zoom." And boom, all I had to do was type in NMUG for the password, and it logged me in. Very clever little tip. Very helpful. And yeah. I forgot the phrase. It's not it's join Zoom. And boom, as long as Zoom is in your calendar event to join, it works.
And you can hook up Zoom with, if you have a Google Calendar or Google account, you can hook it up with, they're really expanded into making this a full their own ecosystem, not just Zoom. I want to mention also, make sure you have a focus mode set up. So when you're in Zoom, like on the Mac, and now I'm dipping into the question, but it wasn't in my slide, but it's a good tip. Go into focus here and set up a webinar. And essentially what I would do, you can set it up to where it turns on when Zoom opens up, but that's not a good solution when you're on the Mac, because if Zoom is in the background, it turns the focus off. The focus only works when the app is in the foreground. So what I would do is I would set it to a specific time, like with NMUG here on my main computer, I have that go into a webinar where I don't receive any notifications, and it's from 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock or something along that line. You want to set it up with the time, not necessarily with the app, because you put that app in the background, boom, you're going to get notifications. It doesn't. Focus only works on the topmost thing. So, okay, next question.
All right, Eileen, go ahead.
Thank you, Shita. Dan, fabulous class. I needed you a couple of weeks ago. Everything blew up. But real quick, quite often I have kind of like a family Friday night Zoom, and I'm having difficulty trying to figure out, can I set up my family as a list? I feel like I have to go in and add them one by one. I didn't know if there was like, it doesn't seem to want to link to my Apple contact list. I don't know. Is there it's not difficult, but I'm just wondering, is that the?
No, there's not necessarily an ease, like if you wanted to email them that you're creating a Zoom meeting or something like that. No, there's
Thank you. I'm not crazy.
no, you're not crazy.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate your help. Thank you for a great.
You could use your, with Zoom, there's basically two different types of meeting IDs. You have a personal meeting ID and then you have a random one. The personal ID is like your address at your house. It doesn't change. You could hand that one out so everyone always knows that it's the same meeting ID and password. You only want to keep that with close friends, much like your address, because otherwise anybody could just kind of stumble upon and join your meeting. Like with my meetings, are change every week, the meeting ID. And I know some of you are part of my meetings and things do happen, but I don't use the same meeting ID because every meeting there's potential for a catastrophe. Although it's getting a lot better. I think it's just people are a lot better these days, and Zoom has gotten a lot better with Zoom bombs and all that. But in the beginning, it was like, ooh, kind of thing. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fred Pryor, please ask your question.
Oh, hang on a second. I just lost it.
You want me to ask it?
Yes.
Fred and actually several other people are asking the same question. Why does Zoom drop me out of meetings during the meeting? And he's on the iPad, but also someone on the Mac has said the same thing.
Good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe, let's see, I had that a few months ago on one of my meetings, and you are able to join it back up. This is why with the iPad, I don't generally run into a problem, but I don't have too many meetings on the iPad. With the Mac, and I don't do it enough, restart your Mac and make sure you're not running any other apps.
Bandwidth.
And yes, I'd like to thank you for that, Stephen. What I'd like to say bandwidth as well, because during my class this past Saturday, at the very end, which was just great timing, I was thrown out of the meeting.
That's right.
Yeah, and I know that Comcast has been doing work in my area, and it's usually bandwidth. I didn't have to do anything. It brought me right back into the meeting, but usually you're thrown out due to bandwidth issues.
Yep. I would also say
I quickly say, when the degree of excellence exceeds 100, you get thrown out.
Oh, I love you too, Eckert. Thank you.
Also, like I said, what you want to do is try to connect up via Ethernet if you can, and upgrade your routers. We've talked a little bit about this, just more soft talk, like in the beginning of before we have our meetings and all that. I used to use Apple airports, which were great. Don't get me wrong, they were fantastic, but they're 10 years old. They aren't fantastic anymore. If you have multiple airports, you're slowing those things take up. If you have two airports and let's say you have a gigabyte speed, each one of those is now at 500 megabytes. You add a third airport. Each one of those is now at 333. Now, most people are at 100 megabytes, which means you have two airports. You think that you're getting double the speed. You're getting half the speed. Airports, and I know a lot of people use them, and it's great. It's Apple, but they're old and they're horrible. You want to get into something like a mesh network. I'm a fan of Eero, which is made by Amazon, but they are night and day difference when you get into a mesh network for bandwidth. Especially today's world where, we have 20 million devices at our house. I mean, light bulbs are Wi-Fi, all that stuff, and it's so if you run into that a lot, it may be your how it's connecting up to the network. It could be your Wi-Fi,
Right.
So.
And I'd like to second, Ethernet is king.
Ethernet is king.
Ethernet is king. You do not want to do this over Wi-Fi.
And I had it, I redid my office for a couple of meetings, and my Wi-Fi, my hub came unplugged. So my computer switched to Wi-Fi, And for a few meetings, you probably remember this, a few meetings, I was really running into problems. And then I'm like, what is the problem here? And then all of a sudden it was like, when I moved my office around, I unplugged the Ethernet and it switched to Wi-Fi, and that's where all the problems came, Wi-Fi. So I'm just far enough away. I have an old house. It's nearly 100 years old. And these old plaster walls, it all depends on what kind of house you have. Old plaster walls are not good. So even though my Wi-Fi is literally 50 feet away from me, our house is 1,200 square feet. It's not a big house, but try to get through these old plaster walls. It's not drywall, it's plaster. It has a very, very tough time. So basically when I went into Wi-Fi, everything just kind of blew apart. So I have an Eero, like I said, and now I have a second one sitting 6 feet away from me that, but again, I'm also wired. So that's, the Eero is more for my car, so my car can connect up to Wi-Fi. And we can talk about that next week. So
Okay. All right. You have a question from Rick Matheson. Rick, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, on my iMac, I'm seeing many non-Zoom icons or buttons on your shared screen. What are you using to control your broadcast that might put those on the screen?
I believe he's talking about your
you
eCam
are
interface.
you are seeing my eCam. This is actually my software that controls. That's what you're seeing. I shared the wrong screen. Ignore those. This is all my good stuff. This is my microphones, my camera effects, audio. I can make applause. So ignore those.
I was wondering whether that was because I have eCam also.
Oh, okay.
But
no, it's just that I'm sharing with.
That was what I guessed.
Yeah. So with
Okay,
eCam, for those of you that don't know, eCam allows me to do all this kind of stuff. And with eCam, what you can do is you can share a window, which is basically what I'm doing here. But I shared the wrong window, and it's actually showing all of my controls. eCam has 2 windows that you can share. I shared the wrong one because I had a catastrophe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, with that, I thank everyone for your questions. It's time to wrap it up. And could everyone please unmute themselves and thank Dan?
Awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Good job.
Very well done.
Dan.
Very good.
Great
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dan, lose the cat.
I don't know if everyone saw the little image that I put in the chat about taping the cat to the wall. That might be helpful as well. So, all right.
Yeah, I mean she's pretty comfy right now, so I don't think I'll be doing that. But she's sleeping. There, now you can see her there.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, that's
But now you just have my green screen. So anyway, next week, like I say, my slideshow is all messed up, so I'm not going to get into that. But this Saturday, don't forget we have our class on FaceTime and messages. We all use this, and I think it's going to be very valuable. Christian does a really nice job, and I think there's going to be some good information in that. And FaceTime, like you said, you can almost use FaceTime instead of Zoom in a lot of cases. Like I say, it's just quick and easy. I need to talk to someone over. I have a friend in Kansas City. He's on Android. I do it through FaceTime. He was surprised. He didn't realize it. I'm like, just open it up in your browser, and it all worked. So anyway, Christian will be going over that. And then also next week, Wednesday, if you're curious at how it is living with an electric car, and it is a little bit different. No doubt about it. It's different, but I will never go back. Eckert and I are going to be talking about that. Outside of that, thank you, everyone. And sorry about the catastrophe.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Be well.
Oh, thanks. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye for meow.
Nice.
Jim.
All right, let's end the meeting.
I did that for you, Sheeta.
Why me?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Can we end the meeting?
I'm going to
please?
end the meeting. Thanks,
Yes.
everyone.
Take care.